Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this episode of Visionary Talks by Governance Now. This is Kailashnath Adhikari, Managing Director, Governance Now, and it is my extreme privilege today I'm being joined by none other than Shri KTS Tulsi ji, Member of Parliament of the Rajya Sabha and Senior Advocate of the Supreme Court of India. Yeah, thank you so much, sir, for joining us.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
So my first question to you is, in the light of a recent high-profile matter which involves the son of the Badshah of Bollywood, do you believe that celebrities, when they are caught in a legal soup, they are more vulnerable to harsh judgments vis-a-vis a common man who would probably gain more sympathy from the courts?
Yes, I think that they are far more vulnerable because it makes news. So adverse opinions about celebrities will always attract attention and cause more damage to the reputation. And therefore, people have to be sensitive to this. You can't, any statement amounts to actually demeaning them, demonizing them. The media may not realize it unless they are in the dock themselves. But the police enjoys demonizing others because it adds to their importance of whatever work they do. I really think that there is a need to protect a citizen's privacy. Merely because you are trying to find out as to whether a particular celebrity's child was indulging in drug abuse. Now, you can go, but you can't make it into a tamasha. You can't say that, it becomes an open-ended investigation where you are only, we say that roving and a fishing inquiry is not allowed. And the law is clear. Section 162 of the Criminal Procedure Code does not allow you to use whatever information you have gathered with regard to the accused to make it public. You cannot disclose it except to the magistrate or maybe to your superiors. This cannot be used for demonizing in collaboration with the media. This is what happens. After all, how did these chats leak out? They cannot be used even by the investigating officer for any other purpose than the trial. The entire information has to be rendered to them. This is breach of trust.
Absolutely.
They do not trust the investigating officer and vests of certain powers of investigation. But it doesn't mean you'll go to town with all that information. This is sheer abuse of the process of criminal law.
Absolutely. And since we were talking about the media, sir, do you believe that, these days the media trial, absolutely the media trial that happens, it knows no bounds and it pronounces their own verdict before the case is actually heard by the honorable courts?
And media is completely ignoring the guidelines that have been laid down by the Press Council, only because the Press Council does not have jurisdiction over the television. It's high time that they are also brought under the purview of the Press Council or have another of their own independent review authority. But if they don't, then the media will realize the heat when they were themselves being investigated. For example,
Absolutely.
the editors who were being investigated, they realized the extent of damage that is done to a reputation of a person, even if it won't wash. Therefore, one has to be very careful about the process of law not being abused. The information gathered by the investigating agencies should be allowed to be used and is allowed to be used only for specific purpose. Even the accused is not entitled to that, to copies of that, because they say that this is investigation which is confidential and therefore cannot be disclosed even to the accused. It can't be disclosed to the accused, but it cannot be. And does it mean that it can be disclosed to the whole of the world?
True, true. Now, sir, involving this particular matter today, where the hearing is there in the Honorable Bombay High Court with regards to bail plea of the accused. Now, this event has suddenly taken a political turn with one of the ministers, cabinet ministers of the government in power in Maharashtra is trying to accuse the law enforcement agency. Now, one of the witnesses of the law enforcement agency is also putting on some blame, and naturally the law enforcement agency is defending it. Do you feel that this needed to take a political turn?
No, I think it's grossly improper for a minister expressing his opinion on a matter which is pending before the courts. It's not the first time that the ministers or chief ministers are passing their judgment. This has been happening time and again, and merely because we keep ignoring it doesn't mean that it's become legitimate. It's still illegitimate. A minister does not have the authority to declare anybody guilty or innocent. It is just beyond his purview. Not even entitled to the information which has been gathered by the investigating agency. Even the Home Minister is not entitled to that. This is the information which can only be used for the purposes which are specified in Section 162 of the Criminal Procedure Code.
And do you believe that, after what the minister of the state of Maharashtra said, certain members or certain officials of the law enforcement agency are coming out and defending themselves in front of the media? Do you think that is also really needed? I mean, why should they?
No, they are committing a crime by doing that. They have to defend themselves to the investigator. They don't have to defend their own integrity through the media. Cannot declare somebody guilty or innocent either. Neither media nor anyone else. Media can report facts.
I think media has forgotten this.
To extent express opinions. But they must make it clear that this is your view and not that of the court. A simple viewer of television these days is likely to be misled. That,
Absolutely.
The investigating officer has found that means that a person is guilty.
Absolutely. And now it's upon the courts. Now, there is a large section of the media, because it has its own biases, saying that, the accused was not in possession of any such material, nor his report justified the fact that he was in consumption of such material, and still bail has not been given. Now, every side paints their own thing. It's now upon the judgment and the verdict of the Honorable Court.
No, but how did people get to know?
Yes, that's the first question.
It is an illegitimate leak by some or the other. Whoever it is, some action should be taken against them. Because this menace is growing. To stem the rot, you have to come down heavily on people who are illegitimately leaking information which has been gathered by them in the course of their performance of duties.
Absolutely. Now, KTS Tulsi ji, that the last 18 months, the world has witnessed a pandemic after a century, and Indian judiciary has adopted to the new normal way of functioning by way of Ecodes. How, according to you, has the judiciary adopted to the new normal way of functioning?
It's a miracle. It's amazing how Indian judiciary has adapted itself, because none of the other courts have been as efficient during the pandemic. During the pandemic, we within I think a couple of months established. Already the software was developed. How we can talk through Zoom or through whichever, and I have enjoyed it thoroughly. I was sitting anywhere in the world, but you can argue before any court, Supreme Court, High Courts, even trial courts in many of the states, And this has been, we have just discovered a new way of working. I'm feeling sad that we are going to leave this behind, and at least on 2 days in a week, there's a physical appearance,
Absolutely.
which is very good. But this technological innovation is the most remarkable thing that I have seen in my life.
Absolutely. But do you feel that, the e-courts were able to facilitate the entire process of justice effectively, or the physical appearance, which will now start in a graded manner, will be more effective?
You see, this is all subjective. When we win a case, we say that it has served the purpose. When we lose the case, we blame that, the judge just switched us off. But these kind of reactions are common place in the legal profession. We argue, we win, we lose, and we need to put up a smile and gratitude to the judge for having heard for whatever time they did. I think that this is great news, and we are not now worried. Second wave, third wave, even if they come, the courts will continue to function. It's a great thing.
Absolutely. India has crossed, a 1 billion vaccination mark. How do you respond to it?
Well, I would say that particularly the medical profession deserves to be lauded for this effort, greatest amount of effort. We have perhaps inoculated more people than even China.
China, I think, has more, but maybe the speed could be higher.
More, but the number of persons who have been vaccinated, India is perhaps ahead of them. And whether ahead or not, the question is that it's a gigantic task which has been performed with a hell of a lot of planning. And the government obviously ultimately will get the credit for that. But it's also the entire opposition also worked along with them in step with the government. The persons who have risked their lives at a time when there was no protection for them, and these overalls that one used to wear were most uncomfortable in the peak of heat. So I think we owe a debt of gratitude. We are still alive because of all of them.
But do you feel, sir, that the opposition, I mean, you said that they were with the government, but when the 100 crore vaccination, the vaccination mark was crossed, the Congress opposition said that, only 21% are fully vaccinated. Why to rejoice? I mean, is it a good statement?
It's a good statement. It's a good statement to remember that this is a job which is left to be done.
Okay.
And we shouldn't, relax, get relaxed that the job is over. That kind of an attitude is exactly what will bring the third wave up. So therefore, I think it was a very significant advice to the government.
Absolutely. Now, KTS Tulsi ji, many times now, this is the age of social media that we live in. Many times lawyers, when they take up cases where the public sympathy is least with their client, they are getting trolled. And that is the norm of today's hour. So how, as a lawyer, I mean, do you feel that one must react to it, or one must, deal with it rather?
No, I didn't follow the question.
My question was that sometimes as a lawyer, lawyers take up cases where the public sympathy with their client is least, let's say, where in the eye of the public that person is pronounced accused. Maybe the media has also played a role in it. And that is why the lawyers get trolled heavily on social media. So how do lawyers deal with it?
No. In England, there is a practice that it's like a cab rank. Lawyers are like the taxi drivers
Hmm.
of United Kingdom, where he cannot say no. If his rank is this, and a genuine person comes to hire a cab, he cannot say, "I will not go in that direction."
Hmm.
He has to, if he is in the queue, he has to take the guest to his destination and then do whatever. The cab rank rule applies to lawyers.
Hmm.
A lawyer who is practicing
Hmm.
and is member of the bar association, somebody comes to him that please do this case, he cannot say no.
Okay.
It is professional misconduct to say no.
Hmm.
A lawyer is obliged to do
Hmm.
the best he can in every case.
Hmm.
We can't guarantee success.
Hmm.
But of course, I have in my life appeared for many persons who were unpopular,
Hmm.
who had done work which was unpopular,
Hmm.
but that didn't stop me from doing it.
Absolutely. Hmm.
I was a special public prosecutor in Punjab at a time when no one was willing to appear as a junior with me.
Hmm.
I was a lawyer for Mrs. Kiran Bedi, and there was a lathi charge on the lawyers. She was extremely unpopular with them, but then the lawyers, all sides allowed the truth, the process of discovery of truth through a commission of inquiry.
Hmm.
It was unpopular, but then I had a job to do.
Absolutely. Now, as you mentioned that you were a lawyer on very high profile cases where the client has a lot of expectations. How, as a lawyer, you deal with that?
We cannot give them an assurance
Hmm.
to reduce their pain. We
Hmm.
still have to objectively assess and tell them the truth as to how we feel about their case, so
Hmm.
that if the adverse decision comes, it
Hmm.
doesn't knock him out.
Hmm.
He should also be prepared, because we need to uh, deal with our cases very dispassionately.
Hmm.
In the court, we may only be seeing the viewpoint of the client, but when we talk to the client, we give him our fair assessment.
Absolutely. Now, towards my last question, sir, a lot is said always about the human resource crunch in the Indian judiciary, which sometimes leads to delay in delivering justice. What steps would you suggest to ramp up the infrastructure of the Indian courts?
But this is the biggest weakness that we have in the judiciary, not being able to dispense justice in real time.
Hmm.
It takes decades, some of the cases. I feel that any case which is more than 5 years old
Hmm.
should abate. We should bring up a law
Hmm.
that it will abate. It will be like a hammer falls. The hammer will fall on cases which are more than 5 years old, whatever level,
Hmm.
so that at least today's cases can be decided tomorrow.
Hmm.
I don't mean exactly the same, but I'm
Hmm.
only saying it proverbially.
Hmm.
Today's cases should be decided within 5 years.
Hmm.
And for that, the only remedy to my mind, which comes to my mind, is a law which says these cases abate.
Hmm.
Because people can't delay of years
Hmm.
is justice. That's injustice.
Hmm.
If we haven't been able to do justice to people for 30 years,
Hmm.
which maybe some of the cases were long enough gestation. At least tomorrow's litigant should get justice.
Hmm.
It's not a very very good solution, but it's practical solution.
True. Thank you so much with that, Shri KTS Tulsi ji, for joining us on this episode of Visionary Talks by Governance Now. It was an absolute honor and pleasure to host you this morning. Thank you so much, sir, and thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for also joining us. Jai Hind. Thank you.